is 4:30 on June the 26th, 2023. We're going to be calling this meeting to order. Let's start off with any public comment. Do we have any public comment today?
No, sir, we do not.
Very good. Okay, we will move into regular business and presentations then. 3.1, approval of the meeting minutes from the regular BEDC board meeting of May 15th, 2023, the Leadership Summit of May 22nd, 2023, and the special meeting of June the 12th, 2023.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All those not? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. 3.2, receive the financial report provided by the City of Bastrop's Chief Financial Officer for the period ending in May 2023, and any comments.
Good evening. All right, so this report is on May. Revenue of $404,415. Expenses $265,066. And gained a little bit over $139,000 for that month. Sales tax is continuing to be strong. It varies month to month, but it's still almost 2% over our forecast. We have only spent almost 34% forecast to actual, so most of that is sitting in personnel. We know we have positions unfilled. As far as the projects are concerned, of the $2 million for Jackson Extension, we spent $463,000. I don't have any expenses associated with the Business Industrial Park MLK. That $2 million budgeted, and of the bonds that we're continuing to spend down, this is actually related to the Jackson Street extension as well. We've spent a little over $50,000.
Is that just for the engineering work that's been done by Doucette, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's all engineering. And that's remained the same month to month. I did put a new chart in. I was hoping this would be a little helpful, even though it's extremely hard to read. I cut and pasted it, but it does show you the issues. So by color, we have the first issue that'll be dropping off in 2 years, and then so it kind of shows you by issue. So hopefully that's a little bit clearer than the other. Total current obligation 2.7. Any questions for me?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay, moving right along. 3.3, discussion and possible action regarding Resolution R 2023-0009, supporting the Smithville Workforce Training Center.
So, Board, this is bringing back the action that you requested at the last meeting to provide a resolution of support to engage with the Smithville Workforce Training Center.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, let's see here. 3.4, discussion and possible action regarding the adoption of procedures and metrics of the revolving loan fund.
I can pick it up till Drew gets to the mic. This is these are the changes. You do have the red line at your desk to recognize what it is you asked us to change at the last meeting. 2 items still remain outstanding. One is the selection of the subcommittee, and it would be my recommendation, because council sees this again, that it not be Board Member Lee nor Board Member Kirkland, nor the chair. The chair, you're missing a person. That it be for sure Mr. Washington as the treasurer, and the action that we're going to take here in a minute, Board Member Schrader, because the council will see it as the agenda. And then the other item that you asked us to go back, well, that we have reviewed was whether or not this was going to be on a first come, first served basis. And that's how we have put it in, because as we discussed with businesses, there is sometimes an immediate need, and if we leave the application open for a certain period of time, we may miss a window of a business need. So we are open for some board discussion for you guys on how you want us to head in that direction. As it's written, it's on a first come, first served basis.
Right, thanks, Sylvia. So first I want to say thanks for the discussion about the revolving loan fund. The last time we met, we thought it was a lot of good input, and so in this document, we tried to incorporate as many of those recommendations as we possibly could to address those items. I can kind of give a brief overview of each of the changes that we made to the previous policy as it was written. First is just noted as a definition change from lender from bank or BEDC to BEDC or established BEDC bank or lending institution. And what we were trying to do there was to say, hey, it could possibly be the BDC that's running the program as the lender, or maybe we would appoint a bank that would, act in that capacity for us if possible. And then we move further on down to page 3. There was a discussion last time about wanting to make sure that we talked about the exhaustion of funds. And that's Sylvia just talked about here, and we put in here on a first come, first served basis each fiscal year. And then once the funds are exhausted, then the BEDC board would have to decide, or what we would do to make more funds available if that was something that was wanted. Depending on the demand for the service or the funds. Further on down on 3, we just corrected a few words to make things a little more clear. So on number 1, where it said business plan, we corrected this wording to address the possibility of the funds being used for maybe just a single purpose, rather than it kind of sounded like maybe it was just only for startups. So I wanted to make sure and put in there that this is a possibility that it's also an existing business that maybe just needs a single piece of equipment. And so thought that made it a little more clear there. On number 3, we wanted to make sure and spell out that the person's personal credit may be looked into. So I didn't think that was quite clear before, but wanted to make sure that was stated. A little bit further down, we were asked to come up with a matrix to determine an applicant's ability to get a loan, and then also kind of give it a loan score. So we did a couple things here. On number 6, we put in a minimum criteria. Those are broken down between an existing business and a startup, so there's going to be different criteria for each one of those. And these are kind of minimum standards, kind of went off some existing People Fund is a lender that deals a lot with people trying to get smaller loans. And I used quite a bit of the information from them to kind of help set these standards so that there was kind of a benchmark to look at. So as you can read across here, it's, personal credit score, revenues, years in business, business plan. These are things that they would, hey, we have to see these before, you move on to the next step of being a candidate for the loan. Once they pass that bar, then we created a loan scoring matrix to help try to give a little bit of an objective score to this, rather than just all subjective. We were looking these based on scoring rubric used by banks and loan committees in the private industry. So a lot of those are based on, you can say 3 C's or 5 C's of a person's, the quality of a candidate. We tried to incorporate as many of those as here as possible so that the person could be scored, objectively, but kind of subjectively at the same time, based on their character, the conditions of the economic conditions as they stand, the way their business plan looks, and does it seem to be a good business plan, and their capacity for repayment of the loan.
So just a question, just
Sure.
to give me an idea, what is your definition of applicant character? I'm not sure I understand what that means.
So, yeah, so on that one, it's going to be listed, and character is kind of going to be looked at on their credit score. So what's, have they been paying their bills on time, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Yeah, and we can, if you wish, we could maybe make a note or something and that
Well, I'm just,
explains that a little
I mean,
better.
I understand credit score, I'm just, personally, I look at that and go, what do you mean applicant character?
Right, right.
That doesn't tell me anything at all, to be
Yeah.
honest with you.
Yeah, no, and that's why I kind of put in parentheses credit score. That way you could, kind of determine what their character is based on their past history of the way they've been their bills.
So Chair Spencer, do I hear you suggesting that we strike the word character and it just say applicant credit score?
Thank
And
you.
it's personal
Yeah.
if it's startup and it's the business if it's
Yes,
existing?
I would like to see that
Okay.
stricken, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we can just move that to credit
so-
score.
Not that we don't all love a good character
Well,
now and then.
Of course, that's true. So let's walk through something here. I see at the end, there's a total score.
Yeah.
And then you have a risk score, which is an average of the three. What's the threshold? Is there something in here that says, well, if they're a medium, does that mean they're an okay, or does that mean that we have to look further? I mean, is there a threshold yet?
I
Yeah.
think it's a basis for discussion as the committee is looking toward it. And so I'm going to take off my city manager hat and put on the hat that I wore for 8 years as a credit counselor. Somebody who has a 600 credit score may not have had any lates in the last 8 years, but their debt-to-income ratio may be too high because of whatever reason, student loans being a perfect example, but yet those student loans might be in deferment, for example. So as we go through the matrix, their credit score may show a high risk. But as we go through their communications and their business plan, you may learn through the discussion that they've never really been late. Their capacity to repay is skewed because of X, Y, Z. Couple that with perhaps being recent in business, and banks normally require 3 years of bank statements and credit information to be able to paint a whole picture. So
I guess kind of one of the things I'd like to see is that there's some kind of a threshold, whatever that, and a score of 1, 2, or 3, and averaging that, most likely is going to come out a 2 almost every time. So does a 2 mean that's an acceptable score? Is that something that the subcommittee will probably need to consider before we finish with the plan? Or have staff had more discussion of what constitutes a proper threshold, that it meets this criteria, and if it's over that, it's a yes, or it's a good score, or if we're under it, it's not? I'm just trying to get kind of confirmation here.
You're wanting to know if there's a threshold for the next step.
Correct.
Like if your ones across the board, is staff not going to recommend, or should the subcommittee see everything? Am I understanding what you're asking?
Yes, and quite frankly, I'd really like for the staff to be coming up with a score and then making the recommendations. We believe these people, this business is a good business. We recommend they do it. The subcommittee will take a look at it and then either, confirm or say we need more information. That's how I envision it anyway.
Yeah.
If staff says no and the people are like, but I really, really think I deserve it and I want a chance, can they appeal to the subcommittee?
That's really a good point. Since this whole thing is set up to help, let's face it, semi-struggling companies that need a little bit of help, it's probably not a bad idea to hear at some point from them why they think they're the best candidate or a good candidate, whether it's I hate to use the word appeal, but it's kind of like an appeal.
Well, and I'm thinking if what they submit to staff does their analysis and it comes back with all ones, maybe they're like, well, let me go work on a few things and I want to be able to come back. So do you want them to come back to staff?
Yes.
And meet the criteria? But if, to your point, if we're trying to help people out, just a hard no with no recommendation of come back when your
Yeah.
credit score's up, come back when you have a better business plan, we want to try to help people out.
So I would envision that the subcommittee see all of them at a certain point. I don't want staff to be the end-all, be-all, because there may be some expertise on this board that we don't have, but I certainly would like that opportunity, for example, to talk to a business and say, you know, if you did this and this, your credit score will raise about 40 points. So work on that in the next month, unless the business says, no, you don't understand, I can't work on that. This is a do or die situation. So,
Okay, okay, yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's a good.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
clear, thank you.
I can go with that.
On page 4, we go down to where it's kind of 3/4 of the way down, and it says, this application materials may be subject to public disclosure. We just wanted to make sure that people knew that that was going to speak to the confidentiality portion of this. Sorry. Oh, that's okay.
I want to be real clear here, okay? We can inform them that there's confidential information, but I'm not sure I'm comfortable with releasing anybody's personal income statement or their business statement. That's nobody's business but theirs. So what would be released?
that's
That's
Mr. Attorney.
That's a good question.
Mr. Attorney.
So when those requests would come in, we would process them as we would any other Public Information Act request. We don't get to decide what is or is not released. We get to argue it to the Attorney General. But I can tell you that the things that you're referencing are the things that we believe would be probably protected as confidential by law, but we still have to make those arguments unless there's a prior determination where the AG, like there are some things, for example, there are some things the AG says you don't even have to ask us, like social security numbers and things such as that. So it just depends on what is being sought. But absolutely, we would protect it as much as the city could protect it. It's no different for the EDC.
Oh, okay, I guess that's fair enough. I just want to make sure that we are not releasing information, because again, these are businesses we're trying to help. We're not trying to block anything or release somebody's information, because that's just not good.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
I personally understand that, yes, for sure. Do you think that we need to include anything extra on this portion?
I think if I were an applicant, I would want to know the specifics of what you would be releasing. Because if they're signing the document and saying, yes, you can release my public information, and they don't have a clue of actually what's being released, I think that's kind of deceitful. So is there a way to actually be able to tell them on the application, this is what we will be releasing?
Okay.
Do
and
you
maybe
agree?
Maybe we'll consult. And
So yeah, I mean, we can certainly do that, but we have, I'm assuming we have information on our things now when people apply for assistance from the BEDC. And this would be no different, honestly, with what we would inform them.
So at a minimum, Board Member Lee, we would, their name, their address, their business type, and their request, at a minimum. Their income statement that has their social and their tax years and all that stuff's already protected. So we can clarify what it would be used, and it's probably the very first page of the application that just lists what it is. And then after that,
And you
It's
said the
personally
name,
identifiable.
did you just say the business name?
it would be their name, their personal name, how they're registered at the state, because that's public information. So for example, Cheryl Lee,
Right.
and you have a business called Mrs. Lee's.
Yeah, doing
Sure.
business as Mrs.
Doing
Lee.
business as Mrs. Lee. So your name, the business name, address, all of the stuff that right now is readily available. The rest of the stuff is personally identifiable, like the credit scores and all that stuff we wouldn't.
Right, no, but, and not a description of what the business is.
There is already, you already have some SIC codes, SIC codes established.
If you've got a DBA, they can look it up. What she's saying is, things that somebody
the-
could Google and find out about you, they have to
I
prove.
think I'm thinking more of the concept. That's.
Oh, no, some of that is.
Oh, like a
is,
startup, and you're thinking about.
Some of those are
right, right.
protected intellectual property type stuff.
So I have a question, kind of the other direction. If it's an existing business, and I think you guys were doing an example of like, it may be a refrigerator, or you need a big mixer because you're going to move, you're trying to move to a commercial kitchen or something like that. Maybe to Councilmember Lee's point, you may not want the whole world to know that you're getting ready to expand. So would it be that you have applied, or would it be Mrs. Lee asked for $5,000 for a new KitchenAid commercial mixer?
Go ahead, go ahead.
I would say, we don't need to say we're buying equipment.
And that's what I'm trying to clarify, because we were saying it would be on that first page. I'm saying how much, because yes, she's applied, but is the amount and is what she's asking to use it for, is that also something that we think has to be disclosed, or can that be none of your business?
Well, the amount has to be disclosed because it's going to be awarded in public. What they're using it for,
But can you
I'll
hold
let
off on the amount until it's awarded? Because if it's not awarded,
Sure, because the committee's going to discuss it in very probably closed session, because you're going to be describing proprietary information and
Right.
often personal identifying information like credit scores.
okay.
And Sylvia, I would view this the same as we do any of our other projects. Until it's actually acted on and awarded, it is.
Code name.
We keep those confidential
Right.
Yeah.
now.
Right.
And I wouldn't view this any differently.
Yeah.
Just a point of clarification, if you don't mind. You use the term, the subcommittee works in executive session. I'm under the impression that a subcommittee doesn't necessarily need to be in executive session to discuss things. Am I wrong? Or,
No,
Okay.
you're correct. What I'm saying is we're not talking about those things in public. We're behind closed
Okay.
doors, not talking about people's credit scores and things. So, no official meeting. There's
Thank you.
only, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that.
okay, 5 years.
On to page 5, there was a discussion about the origination fees and passing those on to the person obtaining the loan. We changed this and corrected it to assure that the EDC is going to take on the origination fees and whatever we need to do to, credit score check and all that kind of stuff in here, so. And then we did put in here that for payment by check to, and Sylvia had mentioned, to the city, and then provide invoices from there.
So again, just a point of thing number 6.
Oh, yes.
Basically, you're going to be asking them for a COI, certificate of insurance, that names the EDC? Because that's typically what insurance companies provide, is an actual certificate, and COI is what it's called. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
And I believe that it is all the corrections thus far.
They can only pay by check?
That's how we have it listed here, but if you want to, discuss further, that would be okay.
I think we need to be a little more open than that. I mean, a lot of people use ACH, wire transfers.
We have the ability to ACH. We
Okay.
have the ability to
Okay.
wire, yeah.
Yeah, on a card.
That's also a very good point, because they're small business, they're going to be
Yeah.
doing most everything via credit card, right? So let them get the point, sure. I don't have a problem with that. Okay.
You might want to just leave it open to whatever forms of payment that the city's finance department is authorized to accept.
Okay. Going to go down to loan procedures in number 5, evidence of permits. If they're buying an equipment, what permit do they need?
Yeah, some of these probably aren't going to be applicable in situations. Yeah, I would agree.
So at the top, loan procedures should also state as applicable.
Thank you. Yeah.
So I have a few questions. So it states on here that once funds are exhausted, the EDC must approve additional funding for applicants. Where does that funding come from, or what is that process like?
Could potentially be from fund balance. It could be the EDC allocating unused dollars in an operational line. It could be, so for example, if we were slated to hire a person and we never hired, and there's, $50,000 in salary savings, the board may take action to move that from salary savings into programming, move money from fund balance. It would take board action no matter what it is.
So would they still apply, and how are they going to be considered? If the funding from the RLF is gone, how are future applicants after that in the same?
We have to bring it to the board and say, hey, we're out of money. And ideally, we would do that before the money's over.
And then the board would decide if we want to put any more funds in there for any lingering applicants or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we talked a little bit about this last time. We need to realize this is only $20,000 a year that we're getting on this thing. And we already set this thing up at $10,000 maximum, so theoretically, you're going to have two.
20 plus the 30 the board,
Sorry, for excellent correction, thank you. So we have a finite number
Yes.
unless we need to bring it back to the board for more approval to continue on with additional funds, so.
And on the fixed rate, is the fixed rate 8% for everyone, no matter how high or low your credit score is? It's just going to be a flat
the fixed rate is 0.75 above the prime rate?
It's actually 0.75% below.
Yeah, 75% of the Wall Street Journal prime rate. So if interest rates drop, conversely, if they rise, it's still 0.75% or 75% of that rate. So if the rate is, 5%, it's the rate they'll be charged is what, 4 and a?
No matter your credit score or where you came in?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Wanted to be sure of that. Slogan.
I can't do math, whatever 75% of 5
I
is.
can't do math at all, so. So the guidelines for the subcommittee, are those going to be ironed out later? Because in reading this, I thought about, like, we talked a lot about having more diverse businesses downtown and in our community. I wanted to kind of be sure that that's going to be, is that a consideration when we're reviewing the applications as well? So, people always complain we have every hamburger business in Bastrop or every Chinese restaurant. So are we going to also be kind of looking at the applications and determining are they a good fit for Bastrop? Do we need any more of these types of restaurants in Bastrop? Because I think that kind of goes along with, keeping our downtown diverse and having options. If everyone that comes to you with a bakery, and we have now 10 bakeries in downtown Bastrop, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's more of maybe something the subcommittee is going to be looking at, or is there criteria that the subcommittee will be given in terms of consideration
I think it's going to end
outside
up,
of these?
the EDC board should every year, as part of its budget adoption, also adopt priorities for itself. We've been a little lax in that because that insightful report isn't here yet. So as soon as we get that insightful report that kind of guides direction, then the board should say, well, according to XYZ, we should be focusing on ABC in the next year and in 2 years after, whatever that time period is. And so I would take all of those things into consideration. We've not discussed any of that yet because at this point our charge has been the salvageability of a business or helping a business succeed. We haven't really discussed location because not everybody wants to be in the downtown, but that's definitely something for the board to discuss if they want to give some guiding principles to the subcommittee.
Well, and I'd also just like to say that we're agreeing that we are going to do this on a first-come, first-served basis. I think this is going to evolve. I think we're going to learn on the first several what comes up, what businesses are applying for it, how many new or startup businesses versus existing businesses. So it's going to really need to be kind of a work in process to see our progress, to see how this comes along. But, taking as many things into consideration as possible, as long as it doesn't create a hurdle where we can't agree on whatever it is. And again, that's why I use the term, it's kind of a work in process and progress.
No, yeah, I get that. A couple more. So the applicant will present to the subcommittee, right?
After review by staff. The staff will actually present to the subcommittee. If
And-
the subcommittee wants more information from the applicant, yes, by all means.
And what if if the applicant wants to present to the subcommittee or the board, will they be able to say, hey, I'd like to be part of that
We haven't really
presentation?
discussed that. I would anticipate that the process goes that they talk through with staff. Staff gives a recommendation, approve or deny. They're available for question and comment at the subcommittee level in case there is anything that the subcommittee wants to know from the applicant, especially if it's a denial, I would think. So, I mean, we'd facilitate that kind of communication. I don't know if you want them here at the podium, or what is it exactly you're thinking?
If I am trying to get this loan and I have this wonderful business idea and nobody can explain it the way that I can explain it, yeah, I'd want to come and plead or present it myself. And I think they should have the opportunity to do that if they so choose, or at least know that we're going to be reviewing, because it comes back to the board for final approval, right?
Yes.
We're going to be reviewing your
guidelines as to what we're looking for. But I think the financial analysis is going to be the big kicker. And then, we're not talking about a lot of money. $3,000 to $10,000 is not a lot of money. So, and then the competition is, Cheryl was asking if you got, in somebody's opinion, more bakeries than you need. Well, that's open market competition. I mean, we don't want to get into that. If we think that that should be a consideration, I think the board, maybe the staff, if the staff makes that recommendation to the board, that, we had 3 bakeries that just went out of business, so we don't want to entertain putting another one down. I think that should be our call. Everybody wants to make sure that diversity and each person or each business has a chance, but then we have to have some guidelines. And when you go to a bank or a lending institution, I mean, they're in charge as to whether they're going to lend you the money or not. And I think we should have that same charge. And the people who want the money is going to have to meet some guidelines. I think the staff should be the people who first take a shot at those guidelines. I don't have a problem if the person says, well, I don't think you all understand, then they can present it to the staff. I wouldn't want them to present it to the board unless it's, I mean, if we were talking, $1 million case or something like this, or $500,000, but we're talking $3,000 to $10,000. So that's just my opinion.
I'm over eager, so if it was $1,000, I'd show up. My last question. On the application itself at the bottom, it says information about the project, then it says amount of loan funds requested, and then it says sources and use of the proceeds. On the uses, are they going to be required to itemize? Like, if they're asking for 10,000, 2,000 is going to this, 3,000 is going to this, or are they just checking, this is what I need?
I think that we would probably want to see an itemization of what they were
I
going to be used for.
agree. That's what I was hoping you would say. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
The one thing we did not talk about, because we kind of bounced it back and forth internally too, is a performance metric for the business itself. And I think we said, well, you're still in business, but yeah, so if we give a $10,000 loan with a 5-year payback and they go out of business in year 1 or 2, was that operationally successful in year 1 and then we failed in year 2 or 3? So I'm not really sure what kind of metrics that you want to see the business, other than providing us information that they're still open for business.
Well, and I think we need to take in consideration if it's an existing business that has a track record. You started off here of existing business has to be at least over 1 year old, right? And hopefully they'll be a little bit older than that. But we're going to probably have to look at a startup business, maybe different than an existing business, because you're taking a lot more risk, obviously, in a startup business than you would with somebody that's been there for a long time and just needs a little bit of help to get over whatever. Maybe they had a fire in their store. I'm just getting things, off the top of my head here. But I don't necessarily mind having some kind of that, but to Connie's point, the payback is going to be where we get verification that they are complying with what our requirements are, right? Anything other than that, if they happen to go out of business, we all know that new businesses, typically fail within the first, 2 to 3 years. And so we're going to be looking at that going, okay, we're going to have to take a risk, but that's kind of what this is about, right? We're kind of helping those that need it. They may be startups. It's going to be a little bit difficult, but we're just going to have to play this one as it comes.
I'd like to make the suggestion, Chair, that whether it's quarterly or however often staff feels like it, we just want, hey, the RLF update is we've made 4 loans, everyone's paid up to date. 2 of them are behind, and we've asked them for a meeting to see if there's something we can do to help them. You know, just some sort, and to your point, it's not tons of money, you're gonna take a risk, there's no clawback. We would be 97 in line, and they don't have any money, or they wouldn't have been asking for the $3,000 to begin with. But it could be back to, maybe that's an informed way to review things going forward. Okay, of the 5 loans we made last year, the 2 that defaulted, it was because they were at 601 on their personal, you know, we're looking for some commonalities. Is there something we can do to help a business going forward? Or is there something where it's like, you're not ready and we're sorry. You know, the last 2 $5,000 loans that look just like this didn't make, you know, but just, I think the board would like some feedback on, hey, we're doing great and we've helped 6 businesses and they're all paid up to date.
So performance metric on the program, not necessarily the business. Got it.
Right.
Mr. Chairman?
I think our biggest charge is going to be to try to do the best job analyzing these applicants to make sure they don't default. Because once they default, then things starts to happen. So I think that financial analysis, and I don't know if you call it character, but you're going to have to look to see what people are all about. And, you know, maybe even the kind of business we're talking about. You get into, I guess, some of the feedback we get from the gap analysis will help us some. But I think that's going to be our toughest problem, is try to make sure that the applicants don't get to default, because you probably won't find a person don't think this is the greatest, my business is as great as ever. So you're trying to convince them that, you know, we shouldn't do this. It's not going to be easy without them going through it. So hopefully the staff taking a shot at everything and trying to analyze basically all of what's here, and then pass it on to the committee, and then between the 2 of us, we'll come up with a way where hopefully these people will stay on track.
So I just wanted to address something that I heard. There was a mention that there's no clawback. I mean, these are public funds and these are economic development funds, so we have to have a clawback. We'll work with Sylvia certainly to develop what the actual agreement looks like, but the statute dictates some basics that have to be reflected in these agreements, and it's not going to be a traditional performance agreement, but I still feel like that does have to be in there to meet statutory requirements. Now, whether or not you actually exercise that is the discretionary part. And so, but I do want to make that clarification, because when it comes back, when we actually get the paperwork and you see something like that in there, understand that there are some requirements that are going to have to be listed, but it doesn't mean you have to act on those.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. I was just knowing if it's 3,000, we're way down the list of being able to get it back. It's not worth the hassle of trying.
So it'd be something along the
Totally
lines of a lien, as an example, or something?
Well, it can
Like
be,
that?
and that's details we'll have to work out with Sylvia on what
Thank you
she
for
wants.
clarifying.
Thank you very much. That's good. Okay.
Thank
Any
you.
further discussion on this?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we got to realize that this is our first shot out of the box. We have the ability and obligation to learn as we go forward. We're not going to address everything, despite of how brilliant we might think we are and how brilliant our staff is. And if we have to change our economic objectives to meet the various demands and the various dynamics, well, then we'll do so. But for right now, this is a pretty clear document, a good step, first step forward. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. And I also agree. I think it's a, really good work here, good start. We're gonna continue to work on this, and it is a work in process, and we are gonna have to potentially change a few things. Well, I would like to recommend then for the subcommittee to be Director Washington and Director Schrader to be on the subcommittee, so that we can get started on that. And if there's, anybody have any issue or
Is that a motion?
I don't know if we need a motion or not for a subcommittee. I was under the impression that the chair could just create the subcommittee.
That is correct.
Okay.
Well, that's awesome, and happy to be on the subcommittee, but I think we're going at, do we want to do you want this to come back for another time, or do we want to go ahead and approve with some of the comments
okay,
that we've
okay.
made so that the subcommittee exists for a reason?
No, that's a very good point, and thank you
Oh,
for
the
bringing that up.
details.
Oh, the details, dadgummit, okay. Then, yeah, we probably, do we need a motion on that? Yes. Yeah, I think we do.
Well, just for point of clarification, I don't think the changes are substantive. The changes are related to the process. We can lay out the process. The changes that were discussed by Councilmember Lee are all related to how we review an application and who's going to see what. If you are in improvement with the red line, then I think the red line can be approved.
Well, except that, like, the red line says only a check, and we were going to make that be any payment available that the city currently accepts.
They can approve that with a
Yeah, so
motion to change that, right?
Yeah, so as long as y'all have noted those requested edits to the red line, then they can make the motion to approve as amended here on the dais.
and that's what I was going for. I think there's a few minor changes. I don't think it's big enough to have to come back, but I just think we need to incorporate them in the motion.
Very good point.
And I had that it not be by, on page 5, that it not be by check, and y'all had words, whatever payment the city's,
By all means, yeah.
yeah, and then adding somewhere in the words, as applicable on the loan procedures.
Yeah.
And then was there another one?
And removing the word
Oh, and
character.
striking the word character, yeah.
Yes.
I didn't go back far enough. No character in the RLF.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't like that.
With the suggested changes and amendments, I recommend approval or move for approval.
Yeah.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those not in favor? Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Awesome, thank you.
All right. Okay, let's see here. We're going to move on to 3.5, update on the BEDC funding commitments.
Apologize for the small font. We will discuss some of these a little bit further. There's a couple of things missing in this commitment, and it's missing because we don't have the information yet. One of them is the opinion of probable cost for the finish out of the industrial district itself. As we go through the line extensions and things that we're going to both service the studio project and then also the park itself, that is not included in this OPC because we just don't have it yet. And then the other one is the MLK technology extension up to the north. Do we have a cost for that? Budgeted at $2 million. That one was an error. So some of these items we will discuss further in executive session, but happy to entertain any questions. To be able to see stuff.
Questions myself, and I know we're going to be talking a little bit more about a few specific items in executive session. So does anybody have any other questions? Okay, thank you. Then we'll move on. Sorry,
This was the map in case you had any questions on where things happen.
got to be a back button.
Next one, we probably should have moved this one to the top of the meeting.
Oh.
However, this is a housekeeping. This is a housekeeping item.
Okay, let's see here. All right, 3.6, if we're finished with 3.5, then consideration, discussion, and possible action on election of BEDC officer, chair, vice chair, secretary, treasury for the remainder of fiscal year 2022, 2023. We know we have an open position here of the vice chair. Director and new mayor, Lyle Nelson, was our vice chair, and because our bylaws state that city council or mayor cannot be an officer of the corporation, so we need to have a nomination for that.
I nominate Connie Schrader to be our vice chair.
Second.
Any discussion? Good. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? They're not here.
And she thought she was escaping.
Yeah, you just thought she was getting out of it. All right. Excellent. Okay. Well, then at this time, we're going to be going ahead and going into executive session. It is 4.1. The Bastrop EDC Board of Directors will meet in a closed executive session pursuant to the Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, to discuss the following. Number 1, Section 551.087, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations. That would be Project Triple Arrow and Project Electric Lion. 4.2, we will reconvene into open session after we finish with that. And the time now is 5:16, and we're going into executive session. 9, and we are, the Bastrop EDC Board of Directors is convening into open session to discuss, consider, and/or take any action necessary related to the executive session noted herein. And I don't believe there are any actions necessary in the executive session. Therefore, I'll entertain a motion to...
Can we talk about the next meeting?
Oh, yeah, oh, yes, actually. That's a good point.
I thought there was a,
Thank you. So we have a joint council EDC meeting. The request is for the 24th? The 24th. I'd like for you to check your calendars to see if a 3 o'clock time would work for everybody. 24th of July, yes, sir.
so I'm just trying to make sure I'm clear. There'd be a meeting on the 17th and a meeting on the 24th?
If it's necessary for us to have a meeting on the 17th, we'll have a very short meeting that you would, the chair has already stated he won't be here for, so you'll have to lead that meeting if we indeed have a meeting that's necessary on the 17th.
Well, why I'm bringing that up?
Because you won't be here either?
No, I'll be
Oh.
driving back, and I should be back in town at noon, but I'll be in a one-ton dually pulling an RV. So if I get a flat tire, so, I mean, I have every reason to think we will be back.
You mean you're enjoying life now?
I have a little more freedom, so I didn't know if it would be easier on
We can
staff.
hold items to the 24th.
Yeah, and maybe and so even if we met after the joint meeting or so, would you like start, if you do it individually, would you do the BDC at 3 and then start the joint meeting at 3:30 or 4 or something like that? I don't know.
We can do that. It just depends on what item is on the agenda. That's also DEI night, so that's the problem with this night. DEI is.
Well, I have every reason to believe I'll be back on the 17th, but I didn't know with the chair gone, I just didn't want I didn't want staff to find out on the 17th you didn't have a quorum.
We'll let you know based on the agenda, and again, it depends on the 2 items we discussed in executive session, what needs to come back.
Yeah, and those would be fast enough. So.
Yes.
But it is my intention to be here. So we'll get, staff will send something out so that it's reserved on our calendars. That would be awesome. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.